What up,
All
my friend?
right, man. Good to see
What's
you.
up? Yeah, likewise. It's been a while. It's been a while,
Man, looking
precisely a
looking
year.
sharp with the beard. I
Oh,
like it.
thank you. Listen, last time you bombarded me with compliments, and I take pride in saying that I tend to look differently. I tend to go up and down in my weight and my appearance, but a handsome bastard is a handsome bastard
Eh,
regardless of the type,
That's
right?
right. Are you still pumping iron?
Fuck yes, for sure.
Yeah,
Listen,
you
I ain't
look
stopping before
yeah.
I'm dead. No
All
way.
right.
Yeah. Right
Good
now I'm
for
a bit
you.
lighter. I think 1 year ago I was nearing 100 kilos, which is what, 225 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now I'm like 88 kilos, which is like, what is it, 11 kilos less, lighter.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. You look very different from the very first
really.
podcast
Oh
I
man,
did
the
with
first
you.
podcast, I
Yeah.
looked like a bitch. I don't remember exactly how I looked, but I looked very, very gentle. I was a
You look
gentleman back then.
gentle. That's a
Yeah.
good way to put it,
Well, I was
rather
an
than a
innocent
bitch.
soul, and then a lot of things have happened. Who knows how I'm
Yeah.
gonna look after 1 year?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Shit. So one thing, man, yeah. Do you mind if I smoke a cigar? By the way,
Not at all. You can
because listen,
do
talking
do
about
whatever you
aliens,
want
getting
there.
ourselves stupid in a conversation like that, nicotine will help that. I've always told people nicotine is an amazing drug. The one thing I love about you is that whenever a stupid idea comes to my head, whether it's what some myths, whether it's aliens, whether it's
Yeah.
werewolves, I can always rely on you. Not only to support a conversation like that, but to happen to miraculously know quite a bit about it, right? I'm sure you're jumping in that conversation, preparing an entire encyclopedia about that topic.
Well, not
Am I
quite
right?
that much, but I appreciate the fact that you reached out to me
Mhm.
on some of these subjects that I haven't been paying too much attention to. And so
Yeah.
when you were talking about Three Eye Atlas, I had just heard a little bit about it, but I hadn't looked into it. So thank you for drawing my attention to that. So
That
I've
was the
listened.
initial reason to talk to
Yeah,
somebody about that. Yeah.
yeah. So I've listened to some podcasts, especially with Avi Loeb. I'm
Oh
sure
yeah,
you've
that's like classic, right? The
really
one on Rogan,
interesting
right?
guy. Yeah, really interesting guy. And I don't know if you were familiar, but there was a similar um, comet, or some
Mm-hmm.
people would believe
Two of them, I
spacecraft.
believe.
Yeah, there was Oumuamua. That
Oh
was
yeah.
back in 2017. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that. I've discovered it very recently. Somehow it just escaped my mind. Yeah,
Okay.
and before that, there had been another one, right? Like long
Yes.
time ago, I think,
A
right?
long time ago, and that's where part of the name comes from. Three Eye Atlas
Right.
is that this is the third interstellar object that we've been able to really see. And then Atlas comes from the name, I believe, of the observatory
Oh,
that first
okay.
saw it. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, Avi never, I believe, got to the point of fully explaining it. I think they slightly touched upon the deciphering the full form of what it stands, but then they got distracted.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it all of a sudden started appearing on my feed more and more. And you know how Instagram algorithm and trends get taken and things get sometimes blown out of proportion and
Sure.
everybody and some shit gets mixed in with AI. So you know what's real, what's
Yeah.
not, right?
I just watched a video. I got on there and it was who did they have on there? Maybe it was Avi Loeb or
Uh,
someone talking about, oh, it's been confirmed this is extraterrestrial.
yeah.
And I started
Insane.
watching it and I'm like, wait a minute, this is AI. And I
You
recognized in
start
the
watching
first.
it, you understand that those people aren't even real. Motherfuckers
Yes,
sitting in the studios aren't even real. They
that's
make Neil deGrasse
scary.
Tyson say the wackiest shit ever.
Yeah.
I've seen so
Yes.
many videos of Neil deGrasse Tyson confirming that after his deep research, he is now drawn to the conclusion that the earth is flat.
Yeah. It's
Crazy.
just crazy with the AI. It's scary.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, for sure. It's like, so this thing about the Three Eye Atlas, I intended some weeks ago to find, my intent was to find a Ukrainian person who can conversate on that topic. And I ended up talking to astrophysicist. Yeah, it was a smart, long conversation. But the conclusion, the bottom line is that it basically nobody has a clue where it comes from. The only thing we know is that it's not from our solar system, right?
That's right.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you know? What do you
Well,
suppose regarding where it's coming from? What's your
right.
thought?
Well, in the research that I've done, I know number one that it's huge. It's about 13 miles in length,
Mm.
a
It's
couple
like
miles
Manhattan, right? That's
wide.
what
Yeah,
Avi
the
said.
size of Manhattan is
Yeah.
it's very huge. And from what I've observed, it's the trajectory of it is different than a normal comet would make. There's some really unusual things about it. The composition, I think Avi Loeb was talking about it, that it's there's a lot of nickel
Oh
in
yeah.
it, and he said that that it could be similar to like an industrial type of design, like
Hmm.
an
Hmm.
intelligent design. So I know that it's not behaving like a normal comet should behave. And
Yeah.
I've also heard that it's estimated that it's over 7 billion years old.
That's
So I don't
insane.
know. Yeah, I
You know,
don't know
one
how
thing
that
that I don't
condition.
know how the hell they did, how did they detect that kind of age?
That's right.
You
I
know,
wonder that too.
man, it can't be real. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to get too dumbed down. You know what I mean? I
Yes.
don't want to get too conspiracy rabbit
Sure.
hole falling kind.
Yeah.
But geez, the more I listen, I've been falling into a lot of philosophy lately. I think this past couple of months I've been my mind has been mostly occupied with philosophy because I find a lot of meaning in philosophy, and it's counterintuitive and funny because the more meaning I find in studying and researching philosophy, the less meaning I end up having in life. And
Yeah.
that's like almost this kind of curse of knowledge. The more you
Yeah.
get into it, the less you end up having. And clearly, but at least for some reason, I feel like it's a worthy pursuit. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes when I read or listen something about science, basically what everything is based is just observation. Sometimes it's observation, but mostly it's like calculations. It's
Yes.
mathematical equation and supposition and observation. So it's basically like numbers. No way goddamn Einstein knew shit about gravity without observing anything, right? Like he
Right.
had. And do we see actually three eye? Yeah, we do see three eye atlas, right? Anybody can see it, right?
Yes, I guess, yeah, if you can have access to a halfway decent telescope, you
Right,
should be
right.
able to see it. I think next month, about the middle of next month, it should be more observable.
Mm.
So that's
Wow.
what I know
So
about it.
what's the end goal, if you know it? By the way, one thing that I also would like to ask before we jump to that one, you
Sure.
mentioned your teenage sons, I think a son or sons,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, too.
Do people have a weird reaction when they find out how their father is supposed to record a podcast with a guy from Ukraine talking about aliens? Because I
Oh,
imagine that's probably gonna sound ridiculous, right?
oh, for my sons, they know
Mm,
me. It's
mm.
like it's just common,
Yeah, wow,
no
that's
big deal.
amazing.
That's dad
Yeah. It's
talking
like
about
you
unusual
hone out
things.
a couple of hours. You say, no, don't bother me. In that time, I'm talking to
Yeah.
this Ukrainian weirdo. Discussing all kinds of crazy topics. Yeah.
No, it's very interesting. I kind of look at the timing of all this too, because in the United States, in the past, 5 to 10 years, probably closer to 5 years, there's been a lot more disclosure from
Hmm.
our
Hmm.
military, and there's actually been footage released showing like these fighter pilots
Hmm.
chasing
Hmm.
these UFOs, or now they call them
Which is a very new
UAPs.
thing. You wouldn't hear shit like that like 10
No,
years
our
ago, right?
military for decades and decades said, "Oh no, nothing to see here. We've investigated it, and nothing to see." But now all of a sudden, there's this push, and there's all these whistleblowers within the military coming forward, basically saying we have extraterrestrial craft. We've reversed engineered it. We've actually been in the possession of alien bodies,
What?
right?
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Somebody said that?
absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah. There's
Hmm.
disclosures going on right now about that. So
About an
yeah,
alien body
uh,
being studied?
about alien bodies being studied. I just,
Shit.
in fact, as I was researching this, I came across a report. An incident in Brazil back in like 1995 2005, I believe it was,
Uh-huh.
there was a crash, alleged UFO crash,
Man, yeah,
and there
I
was
know
these
that one.
alien beings walking around
Right,
that
right,
many
right, right.
witnesses saw, and they
Listen,
actually,
that fucking story, and not a lot of people know about that story. That fucking,
yeah,
I keep going back to that story. It's like my Roman Empire. I remember
yeah,
that story at least once a
yes.
week, to be honest. And
There's
I
going to
still
be a
like, what is it?
documentary,
Hmm.
and it's coming soon about that whole incident. And Bodon, there are doctors at the hospital
Uh-huh.
that are coming forward now that say, you
Hmm.
know what, don't care about my career. I'm almost ready to retire,
That's
and
insane.
everyone needs to know about this. That they treated some of these
Right,
alien
right, right,
beings
right, right.
in the
I
hospital.
remember listening to something, somebody must have been one of those dumb Rogan podcasts that I was listening to back in the day. There was some guy who somehow was involved, some sort of a director maybe, and I think it's a relatively, it's pretty famous director, and I think he's recently made a documentary about all of it. But it wasn't the guy who is in touch with Bob Lazar. Who's that documentary guy who made the Bob Lazar film? You know? Jeremy
I'm
Corbell, you know that
Oh
one, Jeremy
yes,
Corbell. That wasn't
yes,
Jeremy Corbell. That was somebody else, very famous documentary maker
yeah,
in the United States, I believe. He said that the driver of the car is, I mean, he's alive. The driver of the car who was driving some of those, beings that were
yes,
somehow extracted from that crushed ship, so, but everybody was being threatened, everybody was being silenced, and
yes.
now they're coming out, right?
Yes, yes. And of course, in America, we have one of the most famous UFO alleged crashes was Roswell
Mm-hmm.
back in the 1940s,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have heard about that. There's
Well,
been
that video is
people.
bullshit, right? Do we agree with that? That footage of a supposed alien laying in this,
Oh
you know.
yeah, yeah. That came out. What was it? The 90s or something?
Mm-hmm,
Alien Autopsy, where
mm-hmm,
they.
mm-hmm.
I think so. Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was bullshit. And it's good disinformation as well, right? If you have intelligence services that want to muddy the waters on the subject, you put out false information,
That
and
video is good, though. That video
it
is good.
is
I was
good.
almost heartbroken to understand it's actually bullshit.
It was. I
Yeah.
wanted it to be
Mm-hmm.
true. Yeah,
Yeah,
but the
the
Brazilian
shitty
story.
quality of the video, the kind of
Yeah,
suspense surrounding the video, everything was so good.
yeah. Didn't they say they found the video footage in like an attic or something?
Oh
Like
yeah,
this
yeah,
old
probably.
old
That's
reel.
part of
Oh
the
yeah,
myth. That's
it's
this
part of the
part of the
myth.
myth. It's almost as if it's the same as watching that infamous Bigfoot video. I don't remember the name, but it's got like you know what I'm talking about. The most
Oh,
famous.
The Gimlin
Yes,
film.
Gimlin.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. That
Yeah.
one. Proven, I
Yeah.
believe, proven to be bullshit. Right?
There's a lot of people
Really?
that that
Hmm.
believe that it was real. We'll have to talk about that subject another time. I have a
Yeah.
neighbor
After one
that
year,
has
right?
had two encounters actually about a half
Damn.
an hour from where I lived, and I
Shit.
documented them. I sat down
Really?
hours with him and
Wow. You got
documented
that on
those
tape?
multiple. Don't have it on tape, but I typed everything out.
Nice.
Multiple witnesses
Mm.
in both
Man, it's so
situations.
exciting. It's
Yeah.
so exciting. This local, what do you call this? Cryptids? Cryptic?
Yes, cryptids. Yeah.
Cryptids. Oh, it's so exciting. All of that, whatever, the dog man,
Yes.
holy shit. I wish I could see a dog man. I'd probably shit
Yeah.
my pants, but, or
Yeah.
maybe it would shit his pants because,
Uh,
I don't know where I'm going with my appearance.
right, right, right. But what really to me is convincing as far as evidence for extraterrestrials is a number of things. One is you go back and you look at ancient history and
Mm.
the different reports throughout the culture, even going back to like the ancient Sumerian culture, going back 5,000 years. They depict these beings. They called them the Anunnaki. I'm sure you've
Oh,
heard the
yeah, yeah,
name and
yeah.
you're familiar with them. And
Mhm.
they were giants, and they said they came from the sky, and they basically taught their civilization
Mhm.
everything that they knew, the agriculture, architecture, everything that these beings came down. And it also in the Bible, in Genesis 6, it says
Mm.
when the sons of God saw the daughters of men, they came into the daughters of men, they had sex with them, and they bore children, and they
What's
became
the
mighty men.
biblical conventional explanation of that passage?
Well, that's debated.
Mm.
So you have a line of thought saying, oh, they weren't extraterrestrials, they weren't fallen angels. These were the sons of Seth had sexual relations with the daughters of Cain, and so produced. That's what it's talking about. But there are so many holes in that argument because if you take these two human groups together, I'm sorry, but they're not going to produce these giants, these almost extraterrestrial sounding beings. The other line of thought is that they were the fallen angels, that those beings that came down that it's talking about in Genesis 6, they were known as the Watchers, and they were basically angelic beings that took human form. And they found that the women of the earth were fair, they were good looking, and they had sexual relations with them. Man. And their offspring, they called them the Nephilim. It's mentioned in the Bible. If you look at the Bible, if you've studied the topic of giants, which I talk about in my book, The Red-Haired Giants of Lovelock Cave and Other Ancient Mysteries, if you know about giants and then you read the Bible, you will find the giants, different tribes of giants mentioned many times in the Bible. They're known by different names. The sons of Enoch, the Anakim, the Rephaim, the Nephilim. I mean, all these different the Amorites, all these different tribes, but they were the crossbreeds of these extraterrestrial beings that came down. Whether you want to call them fallen angels or ETs, they didn't come from the earth, and they interbred and they mixed their seed with us. And it's interesting because it kind of parallels in some ways the ancient Sumerians. They believe that the Anunnaki, these beings from the stars, came to the earth, and that they created us. That they took some of their DNA and they mixed it with the primitive hominids on the earth and created us. That's their view. But if you parallel those two stories, I mean, there are some similarities to that there was an extraterrestrial intervention on this planet that intermixed their seed with ours.
Crazy. Yeah, I am more, there is certainly something to the second story. And in fact, I think it's been evolutionarily confirmed that basically something almost mysterious happened to our brain. They say like 200,000 years ago, when all of a sudden our brain got notably larger in size. And some people also kind of ascribe it to perhaps, psychedelic drugs being involved, psilocybin mushrooms, when those primates all of a sudden discovered this magic mushrooms and they started tripping, and then led to beta neuron connection development. But also, what if something intervened? What if something just happened at that time? Yeah, but the first take where that implies that, it was about the women, some bitches from Earth, you know what I mean? If I was the alien, I'd risk my entire civilization. Are you kidding me? Keep them away. Keep them bitches away from me, because I'm doing some cosmic damage right there.
Yeah. Have you heard of the book of Enoch? No. Okay, it's one of the books of the Bible that's not the canonized version, but I would encourage you, if you're interested in this subject, talking about the giants and these extraterrestrial beings intermixing with humans, I would suggest reading the book of Enoch. It was one of the books that wasn't canonized. It was left out of the biblical canon. However, I believe that book tells the whole backstory of Genesis 6. And it'll tell you specifically who these beings were. It even gives some of the leaders' names and the whole story of what happened. And they basically corrupted the DNA on the planet. And in exchange, too, they gave mankind knowledge that we weren't supposed to have, like this forbidden knowledge that advanced our civilization technologically, right? Wow. And so if you go back to the Bible and you look at Genesis 6, it has a brief mention of these giants, and then what happens after that? Then you start getting into the flood. It talks about how the earth was corrupted, that mankind became so violent and so depraved that God regretted that he created us, and so he sent the great flood to basically wipe everything out. Well, in the book of Enoch, it says that the reasoning for that is, yes, we became corrupted, but it was because also these beings, these Nephilim, had enslaved mankind, and they were destroying everything, and that God wanted to wipe them out. And so the great flood was sent to wipe out the Nephilim.
Do we know anything about the authorship of that book? Because when it comes to biblical stories, at least according to the Bible, there are authors, right? Who wrote
Enoch,
that book?
Yeah, Enoch. He was the great grandfather of Noah.
Hmm. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
and in Ethiopian tradition, they follow the Book of Enoch. They say that that's in their canonized
Yeah.
Bible. Like they say that this is legit.
Let's for a second get back to your book that you've published. It's one at
Yes,
this point, I remember, right?
is one. Yep.
Was it self-published? The reason why I'm asking is because I've been working on, I can't fully call it a book yet. It's just a story,
Yeah.
and I've been reading a lot, and I think it's a very
Yeah.
natural process for a person who's into reading a lot. Sooner or later, you're gonna have to try yourself. So, and it suddenly turned into over 200 pages of just pure fiction.
Yeah.
Just fiction slash philosophy slash detective slash horror. All kinds
Interesting.
of shit like that. So, was your book self-published?
It was self-published.
Mhm.
Yes.
Now,
Self-published.
yeah, were you selling it, or was it just in terms of your own achievement that you can put it on your shelf and maybe give to some people of yours?
I think that was the primary motivator on it. I knew, like, yeah, I don't expect to make a ton of money off this or it to be a bestseller, but I love to research things. And I thought, this would be so interesting just to put some of my research in book form and just to, be able to share that with people that are interested.
Okay, so you published it by yourself and then you put it out on sale, meaning for the sale, right? And people could purchase it on Amazon.
I went through a company called Book Baby, and I was pretty satisfied with them. They're for self-published authors, and they take you through the whole process.
Nice.
So I was very happy.
Did they get you to advertise your book?
They have a promo. I did the advertisement myself. It would cost a lot more money if they were to do it. So that's why I went off, and I've done a lot of podcasts since I published the book. And I figured that would be my advertisements. If people really are interested in my book, to listen to me talk on a podcast and, to kind of hear about some of the subjects directly from me that are in the book.
Wow. Okay. So, and how many copies was that?
How many copies sold?
How many copies did they give you when you came?
It's a print on demand. So it's just it's print on demand. So they'll just print them off as people buy them, and so it's not like I have to have a lot of inventory and have hundreds or thousands of books. So it's a real inexpensive way to go. If you're a self-published author.
Yeah, we've got lots of them here. Self-publishing is on the rise. Clearly,
it is.
And one thing and I love the idea, and I previously would consider it as a bit of cheating for some reason, a person who hadn't gotten into that publishing and, hadn't talked to some authors. I thought that, well, it's a bit of cheating, right? Because a publisher needs to support you or needs to be interested for them to do it all for you for free, and you don't have to pay for that. But then at the end of the day, you can do the promotion with these days on the internet. You advertise yourself, you get people to hear about that. So I don't consider it to be cheating anymore.
Yeah. It is a lot of work. I mean, if you want to take that on as a self-published author, you're doing everything. The promotion.
Were you going on some social media, promoting it, paying maybe for ads, right?
I didn't pay for any ads. Mainly, I just wanted to get on people's podcast shows that were interested in these subjects.
Yeah, I think that's how I ran into you initially on that website, which I abandoned honestly because they came up with, I don't know if you're still on. What was it called? Remember
it's something like
matchmakers or some shit.
It's really close name to a dating site.
I know, but there's a difference between just one S letter, I think, at the end. Matchmaker.
Yeah. They started charging a lot more money, so I was like,
I think they completely removed the free plan, to be honest.
They did. They removed it. So I'm not on.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, it was it did what it intended to do, what it was for, right? So I ran into a lot of interesting people. I also had initially when I just started that podcast, which admittedly almost hasn't grown since our previous episodes in our first lesson. I don't know why the fuck I'm doing that. But some of my first guests, oh boy, I regret having some douchebags on that. I mean, holy shit. These guys, who I've lost respect for, especially in the light of war. It's one of this transformation that the war really does to you. I had he's ex-military. I think he's ex-Navy SEAL, but again, it's not, I don't know if it's confirmed because a lot of those guys are kind of sketchy. They claim to have had experience, right? So he is, right now, people mock him. They make fun of him. This guy who runs boot camp, like army boot camp. It's like this organization basically where they take a huge fee from anybody who wants to apply, and they take this bunch of losers, fucking IT dudes, losers, and they're out of shape, and their wife is cheating on them, they consider themselves, slightly homosexual, maybe a lot of things go wrong in their life. And this fucking ex-Navy SEALs dude, they just destroy them physically, mentally. And that's the worst. I mean, I can send you a couple of links. It's entertaining as hell. When I click those videos on YouTube, my time is wasted perfectly, it's like hours upon hours of this footage. And they are very secretive about those footages. They don't like those videos to be released because they know it's bullshit. They'll be just screaming at the guy, dragging him through the mud, making him do some push-ups. And I'm like, I get it. Okay, a motherfucker's got to know how to do push-ups. I know, right? But now, how the fuck is that going to impact my monthly income in my company? Now, the stupidest thing is that at the end of one, and it's this guy who's behind that. It's this exact guy who I've had on a podcast. He's behind that. I think his exact company, after this course, it's like a couple of weeks course, and then they record this final video when these guys are all of a sudden, gathering in this fancy room, smoking cigars, drinking whiskey. Everybody's dressed up, classy shit, and then the main guy, he calls to the wives of those poor participants. And the wife goes, Teddy, he's such a better husband right now. Oh my God, he's a better husband, he's a better father, he's a better businessman. Bitch, Teddy was fucking swimming in dirt. Teddy he woke up at 6, he did push-ups, he went for a run. That's it. How is he making millions right now? Did they teach him any?
How does that equate?
I mean, what's the business plan behind it? Did they give him some meaningful business knowledge? What the fuck?
Sure.
So and it's just one example. Man, I had a fucking mentalist, the guy who's supposed to read your thoughts. That's the douchebag I had on my podcast. And I asked him on the podcast, can you read my thoughts? He said no. And I was still impressed with the conversation. Can you imagine? Crazy. I regret having a lot of people on. But it's like common thing with podcasts these days, right?
Anybody jumps on. You never know. Yeah, if you really don't know the person very well, you're going to have on. I mean, you don't really know them until you get them on there.
Yeah. What do you listen? What pods do you listen? Are you a regular listener of anything?
Yeah, I mean, I listen to some Joe Rogan. I listen to a lot of stuff. I listen to a lot of authors.
What's latest Rogan episode that stands out to you? Maybe some.
Well, that was the one that he had Avi Loeb on. And I don't listen to Joe that much. I just actually started listening to him, and
he's had a bumpy ride recently. I think Rogan back in 2018 is not Rogan in 2025, right? What do you think? What do you think about that change? Well, you might have seen people give him a lot of criticism these days for, platforming guys for openly or remotely openly endorsing Trump, and people are politically split on that manner. And now I think the main criticism for Joe Rogan is that he was very in favor of Trump, and now a lot of people are very, let's say, against Trump for this, what do you call it, ICE thing, the deportation thing.
Yes.
And a lot of people blame Rogan for taking nearly the major part in Trump being elected. Have you seen some criticism of Rogan's podcast recently?
Well, I haven't followed him long enough to really see that, but yeah, I mean, my country is split on that with ICE, and in fact, my hometown is just across the river. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and there was a lot of rioting and stuff with groups like Antifa and other groups like that fighting the ICE agents and. A lot of violence, really, just chaos. There's been a lot of chaos over that.
Yeah, Antifa is Antifa, from what I know, it's another topic for conversation for at least 3 hours. That shit is crazy.
It is crazy, and I just had a recent incident because I work in downtown Portland. I cross the river. I live in Washington, and I catch the bus from Washington across the bridge to my work, and I was walking home to catch a bus in downtown Portland, and all of a sudden I looked down on the sidewalk boat on, and there's a rolled up newspaper on fire. And so my instinct is because it was a windy day, and it was a nice day. This happened, maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. And so I stomped the fire out, and I thought I had it out. And there's a guy standing there, a bystander, looking at me, and wide-eyed, and he said, "Yeah, I saw a guy throw a newspaper down on fire on the sidewalk." And so as I'm conversing with him, a gust of wind hits the papers, and they burst into flame. I thought I had put it out, and the flames are just like
Wow.
3 feet high. And I was telling myself, Floyd, don't try to put it out again, because you're going to catch yourself on fire. And it was right in front of a business, and a lady was looking out the window, at this scene that was unfolding. And I yelled at the guy next to me. I said, "Go in there and see if you can get a fire extinguisher, water, something." And so she comes running out. She had water, and she threw it on the papers, and it put them out. And then we got the fire out, and then I'm like, "Well, did you see the guy that did it?" And he goes, "Well, I think so." And I go, "Where did he go?" And he pointed in the direction that I was walking from. And I said, "Well, come on." So we go about a block down the street looking for this individual. He said he had a hoodie on, and a Max train just left the scene. And we thought, well, maybe he just hopped on the train and got away. And then the guy points to this guy with a hoodie, looks real suspicious. He goes, "That looks like the guy." And I looked at him and I go, "Are you 100% sure that that's the guy? I need to know, is that the guy?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not 100% sure." He goes, "I'm 95% sure." And so I'm thinking to myself, man, you better be careful, because if you take this guy down, it's a wrong person. This could cause problems. And the guy's already telling me, he goes, "Don't do it." He goes, "Don't do it, buddy. The cops aren't going to do anything anyway. Portland's really corrupt. The officials, it's very corrupt."
Shit.
And so, yeah, and so this guy's walking back across the street towards us, and I couldn't help it. I stopped him, and I said, "Hey," I said, "do you know anything about that fire down the street?" And I pointed down the direction, and he looked very suspicious. He looked really scared. He had a cell phone in his right hand, and he goes, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about."
He knew.
Yeah, and then I noticed his left hand was going in his pocket. So I was looking, okay, maybe he's got a weapon or something.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so at any rate, so I had to think to myself, okay, what are you going to do here, Floyd? Like, I didn't see him do it. I'm not 100% sure.
Was it just an act of? Was he just a hooligan, or what was the intent?
Well, that's a question. That's a question. So I had to let him go. And so as I'm walking back to my bus, I get on the bus. I'm sitting there, my head's spinning. When you have some kind of situation like that, you're thinking, well, what should I have done, or what could have happened?
It's the worst. You can never be prepared.
The worst. Yeah, it's the worst. And so this guy next to me, I hear this guy goes, "Fireman, fireman." And I go, "What?" And I look over and I see this guy, and he's talking to me. He goes, "I saw you trying to put out that fire." He goes, "Thanks for doing that." I said, "Well, yeah, I thought I had it put out."
Damn, look at
apparently
you. People look at you like superhero.
Yeah, but apparently I didn't. And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I saw the guy that did it." And I go, "You did?" And he goes, "Yeah, he had a hoodie," which was the guy that we had stopped.
Oh no, that was
him.
Yeah.
He was walking down the street, and he goes, "I noticed he had a rolled up newspaper," and he goes, "There was smoke coming from it."
Crazy.
So he did it deliberately, and he threw it on the ground. The guy goes, "I wanted to put out the fire." He goes, "But Floyd," he goes, "my instincts were telling me it was a bomb and that it would blow up." And I said, "Well," I said, "you're smarter than me, because I tried to put it out." I said, "If it was a bomb, it would have blew my legs off."
Listen, it's insane. It's insane. Whenever there's a deep cut between people, like a split opinions between societies, especially if that split involves somebody's lives, it's getting insane. I mean,
it's getting
Ukrainian
insane.
people with very national pro-Ukrainian position are dying like flies here. Time to time, you hear stories like that.
Yeah.
When there have been a couple of names in, let's say, recent 1 or 2 years that just broke my heart completely, made me totally lose my faith in the development of this country, because, it's like a virus. You're fighting the external evil, and then that evil, it's a devious force because it penetrates you from inside, and it corrupts. It's one thing if the land is occupied, but when the mind of people inside is occupied, it's a fucking virus, and for me, the most representative indication of that virus is Russian language in Ukrainian people. Whenever I run into a Russian speaking Ukrainian person, I just know that when you watch those zombie films, it's impossible. You would never imagine a normal, healthy person talking a zombie out of being a zombie. Impossible. You're not doing this. Any freaking argument, any appeal to remote logic is bound to fail.
Yeah.
Oh, so shit. I mean,
Yeah.
But you people, you Americans, you got to stop this fucking touring campuses. That shit is insane. You guys go to this college campuses touring it. When I saw what happened to Charlie Kirk, I
Horrible.
understood that it's over. I mean, I respect the idea. It's a very noble intent.
Yeah.
Right. You go, but you have to, and I'm sure you understand, like I'm not talking directly to you, but a lot of people apparently don't. And it's also the fucking social media. It's the media because you get those views, you get likes, you get money for it. So they're ready to do anything. You go versus a crowd of people who disagree with you fundamentally, personally. Yeah. They don't even listen to you. You're not changing anybody's opinion. You're just making the clout. You make the fucking numbers on YouTube. Holy shit. Yeah, when I saw that video, I disagreed with everything that Charlie said, but seeing him catch a bullet like that.
Horrible.
Holy shit.
It's just horrible. Well, it goes back to what you were saying about zombies. You have these people that have like a virus of the mind, and you can't have a discussion with them, right? You can't reason. You can't have a difference of opinion and still have respect. Yeah. It's just so divided. It's like black and white, and there is no middle ground, right?
Yeah, Charlie was doing it just for himself. For instance, some Christian apologetics, I think they do it for themselves. They might believe that when they're touring these campuses, college campuses, they do the common good, and that might be the case. But the question is, how many people have changed their mind as a result of those interactions and conversations? Those guys would say that they have had some people to change their mind.
Yeah,
but it's such a minority, I think.
And I can't speak on that. However, I do know that his organization, Turning Point, since he was assassinated, that has grown exponentially. The numbers of people interested in becoming involved in that organization have increased a lot. Yeah. But I don't know, I don't know all the details on that. But
you've been following what happens to his wife, the kind of behavior she's displaying?
No, I have not. I have not.
Crazy, man. She receives a lot of criticism these days.
Yeah.
Receiving a lot of criticism. People blame her for being fake, for not paying supposed and due respect to her deceased husband. The kind of smile that she's displaying, these parties that she's throwing on stage, hugging and kissing Trump. People don't like that. That's insane.
No, I have not been following that, Bodon. No, but I do remember. It's like one of those situations where you remember where you're at when it happens. I was with my oldest son. We were actually at a monastery in Oregon, Mount Angel Abbey, a beautiful I think it's a Franciscan monastery, and we were in their library. And they have all kinds of really rare, interesting books. And we were in the library, and my son just happened to look at his phone, and he said, "Dad, Charlie Kirk was just shot." And I thought, "What?" And then he pulled up that video, and it just shows the
everything,
blood, and I thought, "Oh my God!" I instantly I told my son, I said, "He's gone. Like he's not going to."
Oh yeah, for sure. There's no return from that. There's no return. Listen, a similar situation happened with one very outstanding Ukrainian man. Who wasn't she? She was a language specialist, philologist. Shit, I mean, that person was very patriotic, very radical Ukrainian patriotic nationalist. Smartest woman I've seen on the internet, I promise you.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how old this fucker is, must have been no older than 19 maybe. Comes up to her, pulls a gun, bam, right in the head. She gets hospitalized.
Oh.
I see the images of her with her head being bandaged. She's in the hospital, 1 hour later, and I'm following the news 1 hour later. She's gone, and I even cried when that happened.
Yeah.
But it's this shit. Listen, I hope shit like that doesn't start happening in Ukrainian campuses because, again, it's, the opinion is very split. It's very divided about something.
Yeah. Well, to tie it into what we're talking about with Three Eye Atlas and no, it's not, because look at all the crazy shit that's going on in the world, Bodon. Right. And if you were an intelligent species and you were surveilling our planet, we are dangerous. You know what I mean? I mean, we have nuclear capabilities. We have the ability to destroy the Earth many times over. I mean, and some of our leaders here are acting like a bunch of shaved apes. And so if you were an advanced civilization, how much would you want to do with our with our planet.
Well, let me push back a little bit on that.
Yeah,
This is a very common argument that gets thrown regarding the nuclear weapon and its ability to destroy the Earth. We approach this equation purely from our own human mind, viewing nuclear weapon as a very existential, almost threat. Right now, what if aliens, whatever they may be, appears? What if it's so much beyond what we currently think is important? What if they are beyond the planets? What if they are beyond the universe? So my point is that us possessing the nukes, it doesn't 100% have to indicate that aliens should intervene, purely from kind of logic / debatable perspective, because what if they are so much above it? What if they are so
maybe
much
they look
above
at us
it?
like ants, right? Like bugs, like you're walking down the
what
street.
if us nuking our planet and nuking a couple of neighboring planets for their scale, it's basically nothing, right? So you can never know. And interestingly, similar thing could be said about, when people say that based on the sheer amount of planets and stars and universe and galaxies and universes, probably, which I have no fucking idea how they count that shit. They just keep throwing this number. Oh, the universe is infinite, bitch. What do you? I mean, you saw it through a telescope, right?
Sure.
Now people equate and tie that to a higher probability of some sort of life, just out of mathematical statistical probability. And again, I don't know if I easily agree with that. It's just, I know that to my human logic, according to my experience on this planet in a human body, that appears reasonable. But again, what if we're alone? Let me know what you think about the probability of us being alone. Tell me that this is not scarier than some freaking power out there. Have you thought about us being completely alone? Wouldn't that creep the shit out of you?
Yeah. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. In my opinion, my belief is that we're definitely we're not alone. I don't think we're alone. And I'm not just talking about just the vastness of space. I'm talking about, I believe in interdimensions.
Oh, yeah.
I believe there are other dimensions. There are other beings. I believe from a Christian perspective, and what it says in the Bible is we wrestle not against the flesh and blood, but against unseen powers, against unseen principalities, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. There are other beings, other entities that come from different dimensions. And you hear about this in a variety all over the world in different cultures. You talk about like shamanism. They talk about summoning beings, bringing.
Well, man, remember what Alex Jones said on Rogan 9/11 episode? Have you seen that episode?
No.
Oh, you got to watch. I don't know if it's available on YouTube and those platforms, because Alex. Alex, right? Yeah, but he said that Rogan directly asked him, Alex, are there aliens? He says, first of all, he makes a little disclaimer. He says, Joe, you have to understand I'm kind of retarded, but then he proceeded, which is very Jones style, right?
Yeah. He's a funny
but then
guy.
he proceeds into telling that we have been in contact, the top layers of people, meaning that governmental layer, they have been in contact, and it's extra dimensional. It all is here. It's all here, and they make the contact time to time.
Absolutely. And if you look back, even like I don't know how familiar you are with the Nazi Germany really being into the occult.
Oh,
they they called the Thule Society, the Vril Society. They had all these different occultic groups, and allegedly they were in communication with these interdimensional beings, getting information that they thought could help them win the war. Obviously, didn't work out too well for them.
Nope. Some kind of mistake happened. Whoever was advising them should have advised better.
Right.
They didn't have good source of advice. That's interesting. Yeah. So now, from a point of view of a person of faith, what changes you think if aliens get confirmed?
Well, here's the thing. The Bible talks about in Revelation, that there's going to be a great deception, that even the elect are going to be fooled. Right. Yeah. So in my belief, this is just my personal belief, that what the Bible is talking about, it has to do with these extraterrestrial beings that are going to present themselves at some point And basically they're going to come along and say, we are your creators, we engineered everything. And there's going to be a lot of people, I believe, that are going to fall into that. They're going to believe it because, when you have more primitive civilizations and they encounter civilizations that are so much more advanced, especially technologically, that I think Arthur C. Clarke said it. He said that advanced technology is almost like magic.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's almost like magic, right? Have you heard of the cargo cults? Have you ever heard that term? No. The cargo cult term came about, I think it was during World War II. The United States military was over in the Philippines. They were fighting the Japanese. They were helping the Filipinos. And they encountered some tribes over there that were very primitive that had never had contact with Western civilization. And so they're seeing these planes flying around. They're seeing all this technology as far as weapons. And to them, like, these are gods. These are the gods that came from the sky. Totally. And so our servicemen was giving them food and other supplies to these tribes. And then when we left after the war, these tribes actually made mock airplanes and they were worshiping them. They were worshiping these airplanes, right? They came from the sky. They were the gods. They brought all this good stuff. Lighter, things like that they'd never seen before.
Yeah, maybe some tobacco products.
Tobacco,
shit. Some motherfucker gives me a cigar.
Maybe some cigars.
Holy shit! Yeah, I'm erecting statues. Next day.
Right. And so my opinion is that what the Bible's speaking about in Revelation is that I think it has to do with these beings that are going to come here. I think they're interdimensional, but they're going to portray themselves as like the Anunnaki, like we created you. I don't know if you've seen Prometheus.
Oh, hell yeah. One of the best.
Yeah, it kind of ties in that we're the engineers. We created you. And basically, there's going to be a large percentage of people that are going to follow that.
Now, what's your biblical reference to that? You mentioned a passage, I believe, in the beginning.
It's in Revelation that it talks about.
Yeah, what does it say exactly?
Well, basically, that there's going to be. And I'm just summarizing it in a nutshell. There's going to be a great deception when the great deception. Have you heard of the beast system?
No.
Okay, the beast, that talks about the beast system, and it talks about the mark of the beast. Have you heard about the mark of the beast? Where you have to have the mark to buy, sell, or trade. I believe that all has to do with this system that's going to be forced upon humanity. And I'm sure you've heard of the Great Reset. Did you hear about the Great Reset?
Sure,
yeah, I think that's part. I think that's the beginning of the plans. I think it's what's happening here in the United States is they're trying to destroy our system of government. They're trying to destroy the Constitution and create so much chaos that they're going to say, we need a new system. This old system doesn't work. We're going to bring in a system that's going to be better. And it has to do with the Great Reset. And I think with the Great Reset and it's a technocratic system of government. Right? You don't have presidents. You don't vote the person in that you feel would be the best president. It's going to be ran by big pharma, by the big corporations. They're going
AI, perhaps, right? Probably AI ties into
precisely.
That somehow. Yeah.
Yes.
I just had a conversation as recently as yesterday, I believe, with another American friend of mine. And this guy is an exorcist, believe me or not. He's a Christian exorcist.
That's a fascinating. I've got to listen to that.
Yeah,
I just read a book on demonology.
I'm sending you that episode. It's a fantastic episode. I've had him already. First episode was quite insane, but the second one, we clocked in over 2 hours. That shit was insane. Very interesting listening. It's not just on the topic of exorcism and Christianity. We were swinging,
So I have to check that episode out. I'm so fascinated in that. In fact, I just read a book on demonology, very interesting. But I believe that not only can individuals become possessed, I believe civilizations, cultures can become possessed.
Yeah, Justin would be excited about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, think about Justin. He's an exorcist, and you would think that's already crazy. That guy is blind. Can you imagine?
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, a blind exorcist. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, my home city in Portland, I was telling you about that incident, that crazy incident that I have. It's oppressed. That city is oppressed. And when I take my daily walks through that city, it's oppressed. It feels like that city is possessed, right? That city is possessed. You can feel it. You can feel the energy.
Justice.
It's heavy. It's heavy, heavy, heavy. Yeah. Yeah.
When you say the Great Deception, have you thought that it could perhaps refer to us creating this sort of deception for whatever
100%.
reason? Because here's what I've
Yeah.
been wrestling with this thought.
Hmm.
Listen, let's imagine a big confirmation is rolling. I mean, by
Yeah.
all means, as objective as possible on all
Yeah.
channels, all news distributed. You see the videos with the conspiracy going the way it's going right now. There will be so many deniers,
Sure.
and that's one point of view. It's one side of the coin that maybe there will be just overwhelming majority of people who wouldn't trust it, who wouldn't believe that. But on the other hand, maybe it is like a false flag. Maybe it could be a false flag for all kinds of distraction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, that's a very good point, Boran. You look at what's happening in the world. There's so much mistrust in my country of the government, especially in the last regime, the Biden regime.
For sure.
That really laid a lot of mistrust. So yeah, you're right. There's a lot of people that do not trust the government. However, remember President Ronald Reagan back in I think it was 1985, he was speaking at the UN, and he said something very interesting, and it always stuck with me, Bodan. And he said this. He said, and he was referring to the world, and especially there was tensions between the United States and Russia, right?
Yeah.
So he said, how quickly would we put aside our differences if we had a threat from outside of this world?
See, now I don't believe that the differences would ever be put aside, to be honest. I just don't. I mean,
even in that situation,
no,
right?
yeah, 100%. I understand people's inclination to believe that all these fancy Hollywood films, when countries unite, America working alongside with China and Russia and Europe.
Yeah.
I don't think that shit is happening in reality. I just
too much tribalism, right?
Yeah, we are too human.
Yeah.
Listen, that's what's going to happen. Disclosures, confirmations, okay, everything gets confirmed. People kind of go, interesting, for about one day. Next day, we're back to our work. We're back to our grind. Next, countries getting invaded, people being genocided, same shit. You see, that's one of those illusions that just disappear when, so.
Sure.
And I don't know what kind of reset should really take place. But it brings me to think that, and I've repeated this point, conspiracy theories used to be funny. Not funny, but fun. They used to be fun.
Yeah.
They used to be excited in the beginning of 2000, middle 2020, 10. But you remember conspiracies like exactly cryptids, Bigfoot, aliens. I mean, nobody talks shit about pedophiles, no Epstein files. It's not even a conspiracy. But, these days, shit is not even excited anymore. It's horrible. It's straight up
horrible.
Scary.
Yeah.
And who knows if it's a conspiracy or not, because some conspiracy theories have been proven to be right.
That's
people
right.
consider them a crazy shit until they were. I'm thinking about, what was that? Man, there's one thing that I always forget about this. Charles, was his name Charles Manson, this cult leader?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, like you would tell people, when was it? The 80s, no, the 70s maybe?
The 70s,
60s? Yeah, in the United States, you would come up to a person on the street and say, I think the government is pumping us with drugs and they're testing this hallucinogenic drugs and they're running experiments and that. I'd be like, what are you, wacky? Get out of here. And you see, it's been confirmed.
MK Ultra program.
Yeah, that's what
mind control.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, the military, the CIA was doing testing on their own citizens.
That guy Charles, he got in jail repeatedly, from what I know, and every time he just miraculously got out somehow, right?
Yeah. Some people point to CIA connections.
100%. 100%.
And he talked about using hypnosis, and some people say that he was trained by the CIA in hypnosis and mind control.
Well, he got busted, I believe, and it was exactly CIA, according to my poor information, that got him out of jail every time. Yeah, and then he had this thing how he could influence people, and they followed him. Holy, so my opinion is that we are beyond salvation. Even aliens won't do shit, and it's got to be some serious intervention,
Yeah, well, that's obviously what the Bible talks about, and it says the only way is when Jesus comes back, and when he comes back, I mean, it's not going to be all rainbows and unicorns. There's going to be battle, You hear stories about Armageddon, and a lot of turmoil is going to take place.
Let me ask you this, Floyd. So, and it's apparently very different from the initial topic of the conversation, but I love talking to religious people from point of view that it's always interesting for me to understand almost this nitty-gritty details of the thinking of a person of faith. So my personal struggle with Christianity and religion as it is there are a couple of, let's say, points of contention. So one of them, and these are big ones. One of them is suffering, right? So I was talking to my friend Justin yesterday. I asked him the same question, which I'm about to ask you. He had no answer because I believe there is no answer, but I'd like to know your personal opinion. So let's say that when humans suffer, right, we can potentially extract good from bad. And this is a common belief that good is impossible without bad, with which I personally philosophically disagree. But let's take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
Now, what if we include into this equation animals? And the imaginary situation that I gave Justin yesterday was this. So imagine there's like a wild animal, like a antelope, running idly in a forest, maybe running away from a predator, anything. Then there's a broken branch of the tree, right? And this animal accidentally gets stuck on that branch, and for hours upon hours, it's in pain and suffering and agony, bleeding out, screaming.
Yeah.
And then eventually it dies, right? Yeah. Now, if there had been a human, and maybe the human survives, well, then the human goes off to write a book, start a podcast, inspires other people, and people become stronger. Now, my point is, why do you think, according to the Bible, all-loving, all omnipotent and omniscient being allows this feature, in our planet? If you've thought about that.
Yeah. I don't have a definite answer from that, but if you go back to the very beginning in Genesis, before the fall of mankind, the world was a perfect place, and all the animals, they lived in harmony. And it talks about in the Bible that when there's a restoration of the earth, right, we're going to go back to that Eden state, and the lion will rest next to the sheep, and there will be this perfect harmony. But since the fall, going all the way back to the Garden of Eden, then we live in an existence like you just said, and there's suffering, and there's pain, and there's just horrible things. So it all basically
goes back to.
I think it goes back. Right? It goes back to the fall, but there will be, in my belief, there will be a restoration. There will be a restoration.
Yeah, well, it's this one thing about animal suffering that's been on my mind, and I've been trying to somehow tie it into, Christians believe, because Ukraine is a very Christian country. I don't know if it's like predominantly Christian, but it's still grounded in our tradition, and it's integral part of the culture, of course.
Yes.
And then people say also, regarding the events that had preceded the fall, people wonder if animals died before that, if there had been any suffering, right? So you say that before that there hadn't been any suffering, right? Yeah,
from what it says, my interpretation of what the Bible says, the Garden of Eden, I mean, it was a perfect place, and it was after the fall, right, when we deliberately disobeyed the Lord, that everything went to hell.
Yeah.
And so we have all this suffering. But prior to that, we lived in a perfect place. We were provided for. Everything, the fruit of the earth just came up. We didn't have to toil in the soil and everything. I mean, all that went to hell when we disobeyed God.
Do you think instances of almost useless animal suffering serve any higher purposes currently in this life?
I'm a big animal lover myself. I take care of. I take care of cats in my neighborhood. I can't have pets.
Me too. Every time I don't go outside without cats' food in the pulpits.
I've ever since I was a kid, and we've always had animals in my family, and so I mean, when I see the suffering of anything, any living thing, it pains me. I mean, I even hate to kill spiders, when I see them crawling around.
I'm gonna tell you what I fucking hate entirely. I don't know what your stance on veganism is.
Yeah.
I'm a meat eater, now
Me
that's coming
too.
from a meat eater,
Me
by the way,
too.
as I've always joked, I probably single-handedly contribute to crazy chicken genocide. My hands are bloody, my hands are,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I admit to have
Yeah.
killed myself a couple of chickens back
Okay.
in the day when I needed, living
Yeah.
in village, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Those
Sure.
chickens, they can't run around forever. Where do
Yeah.
you think they are? It's the fucking
Yeah.
earth,
Yeah. Yeah.
now, I also, part of my inner conflict is that I think morally what we do to animals on daily basis cannot be justified. People will
That's
tell you
right.
all kinds of reasons. They will
Yes.
wiggle this topic left and right,
Yeah.
that your body needs that. Your body doesn't need shit from animals, to be honest.
Yeah.
You can, I have so many examples of bodybuilders. You would imagine a bodybuilder is a peak physique, it's peak physique of health, of muscles, of longevity, of everything. And there are a lot of those that are vegans. Now, what we do to animals, that is some biblical kind of shit, that is some hell type of shit. Because to animals, listen, there is this saying that if animals had the concept of hell, this would be their hell. This would be their hell. And those pets of ours, they're lucky. I got 2 cats, I got 1 dog. They're the happiest creatures on earth. What about those homeless ones? What about the goddamn chickens? What we do to chickens? Billions of chickens die every day. And you talk to some shallow douchebag, they'll be like, what do you think, bro, chicken? Yeah, I love chicken. But it's like, really? You don't even know what happened behind that chicken fillet when you came to the supermarket, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe if you did, maybe you would, maybe that would change your view. Maybe it wouldn't.
Well, I think it's worth of trying. The reason why I haven't tried is because I am mentally freaking balancing. I think I'm one bad day away from going Breaking Bad type of character, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
So if I impose another challenge, but again, I can't be sure, because what if I implement it, maybe my mental state will get better, because I will know that I think one of the most optimal approaches to this life is not improving it, but at least making sure that you do not worsen it anyhow.
Right.
So maybe in this case, my mental state will get better.
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought it was interesting, some of the Native American cultures here in the United States, when they would kill like a deer or something, they would pray. They would basically like say a prayer over it.
Almost like apologizing, probably.
Yeah. And like, yes, giving thanks, for providing them, for their meal.
Yeah, when you have to, when you're forced to do it and your life depends on it.
Yeah, they had to go out and kill it, right?
Yeah. Well, what do you mean? A lion kills a zebra? Well, I bet you're not a lion.
Right.
You're not a goddamn lion.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So it's, there's a lot of suffering, a lot of unnecessary, what appears to me, suffering. And I was also thinking about that the other day. Shit. Okay, where were we in terms of animals?
Yeah, we were talking about some of the ancient history going back of these beings, these beings that come from the stars, and we were talking about what evidence, as far as extraterrestrials are out there. I like to look at the ancient stories, and I think there are so many of those that contribute to my belief that yes, there are these beings, whether you call them interdimensional, whether you say they're from a different solar system, have come here. Another thing that really reinforces my belief are so many people. There's many documented cases of people coming forward that have had firsthand encounters. Some of those are more credible than others. There are many people that claim they've been abducted.
100%.
But yeah. So I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He was a doctor. He was a surgeon. Roger Lear was his name.
No.
Okay, this guy, he unfortunately passed away, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years ago, but he recorded doing, he would remove these objects, these foreign objects that were in some of these people that claim they were abducted. And I don't know, you still might be able to find some footage on YouTube, but there was one in particular, this man had claimed he was abducted, that he had an implant put in him, and it shows Roger Lear removing this foreign object. And as he's trying to grab him with his little surgical, tongs or tweezers, you can see this object oscillating around like it was trying to avoid him of grabbing it, right? So he pulls this thing out of this guy's body. He sends it to NASA. And he doesn't tell him where it came from, right? and he just wants them to analyze it. So they do their testing, and they come back and they say that it's a piece of meteorite.
That's insane. Holy
Yes.
shit. Motherfucker had meteorite inside.
He had it
Damn.
inside of him. And not only that, as from a doctor's perspective, he said there was no inflammation around that foreign object that he removed.
What do you think would have had to be the purpose of aliens inserting a piece of meteorite in him?
I have no idea. I mean, there's speculation. Could it be some type of tracking device? Could it be something that could modify the DNA? I have no clue. However, Roger Lear said that was medically impossible, that there was a foreign object in that man and there was no inflammation around the object.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's not possible. That's not possible. And there's a number of people that have claimed they had implants. In fact, a friend of mine, his cousin, because he knows I'm into all this crazy stuff of the UFOs and giants and everything, he shared with me a story that he said was almost like a dream. But now years later, he thinks that he was abducted. Now check this out, Bodon. It gets real interesting because he had to go in and have an MRI done on his brain. And what they also picked up was that there was a metallic object in the web of his between his forefinger and thumb.
Wow.
And he never knew, like, how did that even get there?
Wow.
Because the guy that did the imaging told him, he said, "Oh, you've got looks like a metallic object right there in the web of your thumb."
That's
and
crazy.
he goes, I never knew. He goes, and my friend's cousin goes, "Oh, I think I know what it is." And the guy just kind of looked at him like he knew what he was talking about. He hasn't done any further investigation into what that could be.
Shit. Listen, now probably every time when you have one of those abduction dreams, you probably have to go straight up to MRI immediately. Just scan your entire body. What if you're going to find? And man, I'm pretty sure that there have been probably a couple of guys who found most unpredictable objects in most unpredictable places. Right?
Yeah.
I could think of a couple of guys who will be very likely to find something that clearly doesn't belong there. Right. And I don't know what happened with them. It could be aliens. They will tell you these was aliens.
Yeah.
That's what they tell you.
That's what they tell you, right? There might be another backstory there, right?
Oh, yeah. They just, motherfuckers will come up with any excuse. Oh, bro, that's aliens. You don't get it. Yeah, I saw how you were kissing John,
Right. Yeah. So I find those, documented accounts, I find them very, very interesting. In fact, I reference one in my book, The Red-Haired Giants of Lovelock Cave and Other Ancient Mysteries. It had to do with this couple. This was, I think it was in Montana or Idaho. I don't remember which state it was in. They were going out for their anniversary, and they were going to drive to a nearby town and, stay at a nice hotel and spend the night there. And on the way there, they see this cattle, like 3 dead cows on the side of the road. So they pull off, and this is a Native American couple. The husband, he worked as a police officer on their tribal land. So he's got his flashlight out. It's dark. He's looking at these things, and he said the air smells like it's metallic. Mm-hmm. He felt like he was in like
often report.
A metal shop. Yeah. And he's looking at these things, these cows, and the organs had been removed. Mm-hmm. Like the eyes were gone and their stomach was open.
So what's up with these cows after all? Because it's a common thing, right?
It is. Stories. It's been reported. Yeah.
Just for organs, you think, according to the lore?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like there's some kind of experimentation going on, because in some cases it's like these parts were surgically removed. Mm-hmm. Right? What purpose would that serve? I don't know. It just strikes to me as like some type of experimentation going on. But then as they're looking at these cows, they see this giant UFO. They said it was huge. It was like the size of a football field. And so they run in the truck, try to drive off. The car won't start. The wife is on the phone trying to call the authorities. The phone's not working. Then they black out. They don't. It's like 3 hours gone out of their time. They wake up in their truck. They don't see anything. They don't see the cows. They don't see anything. And the guy had a pistol because he was a police officer. He had it in his vehicle because I think he originally took that out. It was gone. And they didn't discover that till they got to the hotel and they checked in and they wanted room service. And they were told like, hey, that's not going to start again until like 6 a.m. And they go, well, what are you talking about? We were only like an hour away. What happened? So they had about 4 hours of missing time, and the husband discovered his pistol was gone. So he was so distraught about his missing gun, they drove back to that location, and of course, nothing was there. There were no cows, anything, and they were looking around in some of the brush, and they found his pistol, and the barrel of the gun had been melted.
Melted, yeah. I knew it was going to go there. Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, that's crazy. There was another guy again on Rogan. It was one of the most controversial podcasts, an elderly guy, and he claims to have been abducted when he was in his teens, and he claims to have spent a couple of days. You know the episode I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, it's an amazing one. You're gonna have you love it. You will definitely love it. So he claims to have not only been abducted, but to have visited the spaceship and to have been in contact with the beings. And he also reports that some of those beings that surrounded him while he was laying on this platform, they displayed some female traits, let's say. Some of them, he claims that, I don't remember the name of this guy, but he claims that, some of them were a bit more compassionate and others were a bit more like cautious regarding him being there. And he was brought back, I think, 3 Earth days afterwards. And then he was put back at the exact place where the abduction took place first when it happened. And I mean, this guy's been, and there's also even a film, I think the 90s film, Lights in the Sky, I believe, or Fire in the Sky. Fire in the Sky.
You've seen it? Travis Walton, the guy
that's the guy. Yeah.
I met him.
You met him? Really?
And had a conversation with him.
Wow.
Yeah. When? This was back probably about 8 years ago. It was at a UFO
but I got the story
convention.
Right?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, he was allegedly abducted in Arizona. They were doing some tree cutting or something.
Right. Yeah,
and,
there were a couple of guys, right?
And
they got into a fight, right?
Yeah, Travis saw this craft. They all saw it. It was landed, and he approached it, and then he was hit. He said it felt like it was like some type of energy beam, and it knocked him off his feet, and basically he was taken into this craft, and he was missing for a number of days. Some people say that it's very credible, and then you have other people saying, that this is just a made-up
one
story.
of the things that is supposed to give him credit is that his story has been consistent. Ever since he came out, his story has always been consistent, and Rogan said that that's one of the most compelling reasons why he's probably telling the truth. Me personally, man, I mean, I can listen. I've been repeating some lies to myself, but at the end of the day, I kind of believe them.
Right.
You repeat some lies so often, you start believing them. You literally feel at every level that it's actually happened with you.
That's true.
Some shit that I try to remember from my childhood, I don't know if that was the case, or I dreamt of it, or I dreamt about it, or I was just delusional, I was playing some game. So who knows?
Yeah.
Does he make any? Is he still around, right? The guy.
He's still around. Yeah.
Does he make any profit from that case?
I never looked in really deep into that. I mean, I'm sure he's made some money off of it, but you also have to look at the other side of it. Look at all the critics and probably all the stuff that he's had to deal with. Probably a lot 100%. Of ridicule, ridicule and everything. Right. Yeah, and then you kind of compare, like, okay, with the amount of money that he made.
Yeah, because it's not the kind of story that's like you have to. An average Joe probably wouldn't come up with a story like this. You would have to invent something else. Some kind of other story, right? Now, What do you remember? What happened to those guys around him? I think one of them died somehow.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the status of the friends that were there. I just remember the conversation that I had with him, and I had a friend who was asking him quite a bit of questions about his experience when he was in the craft, and he seemed very open. And in fact, he said there was at least some individuals on that craft that looked human.
Yeah,
some were not human.
Damn, I thought about female
were
traits.
human.
Yeah, maybe I'm fantasizing.
Yeah.
Well, shit, man. Listen, being abducted by a couple of hot bitches from another planet, shit. Sign me up, baby.
Yeah. Beam me up, Scotty, right?
Oh, for sure. That's what I would tell them probably.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Beam me up.
I tell
Get
them
me
shit like
out
that.
of
They bring me
here.
back immediately. They'll be like, "Oh no, this is the wrong guy. Wrong patient."
Right. Right, right. So yeah, that's another. I mean, you got a lot of accounts throughout ancient history. You have a lot of firsthand eyewitness reports. You have individuals that claim they've been abducted. What is fascinating to me is, like I said, is the implants, the actual work Roger Lear had done, where he's documented pulling these foreign objects out of individuals that had no reason to be there, and medically were not consistent with what should happen if a foreign object is in somebody. Those type of situations convince me that there's something going on here. And another point I'd like to bring up is the elongated skulls in Peru and the Nazca mummies. Are you familiar with those?
I've heard something very vaguely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote about those in my book as well. In 2018, allegedly there was some, they call them huqueros. They're the tomb robbers over there that loot these ancient tombs. And they sell a lot of stuff on the black market, a lot of archaeological things there. A lot of.
I always want to know the counter approach to that. Has that been anyhow debated? Maybe some
absolutely.
Sort of, deformity took place.
Yes, big debate. So the Nazca mummies, one of the first ones that was brought out, they call her Maria, and I don't know if you've seen pictures of it or not, but it's elongated skull, the whole body, and it has 3 long fingers on each hand,
Shit.
like long. I'm talking like long
Only
fingers,
3.
right? 3, and yes, and no nose, no ears, and covered in like a white powder. And so that raised a lot of controversy, and there was all these medical testing being done about it. And that's what was most convincing for me, is when you had doctors looking at this thing and they're going, you know what? I saw this one doctor, she was like a bone specialist from the United States. She was saying, I'm looking at the x-rays of this thing, and she goes, I think it's impossible that someone was able to take like human remains and like try to mix it with animal remains and create this thing. She goes,
does it until now remain sort of mystery, or has there been
a debate? It's a huge debate, because they found other mummies. Some of them look reptilian. In fact, there's one mummy that they did an x-ray, it has what looks like eggs in the stomach.
Listen, do you think Trump knows anything about those secret files? And I don't mean Epstein files. I mean the fucking UFO files. Because that was one of the points when he was running, right?
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, I think he does, but I think even the president, I think there's groups within our government that have a monopoly on that knowledge. And I don't think the president is completely in the know of it. Maybe more so than you or me, but for the most part, I don't think he might know something, but I don't know. I think there are groups that have a monopoly.
What he knows is what he tells.
Yes,
he's
publicly that's my
said opinion. That we've had the reports of these sightings. Trusted people from military have reported. And he says that some of the objects are flying and at with impunity, basically, with defying
beyond the laws of
physics. The ocean, right? They seem to come out from the ocean.
Unidentified submergible objects, and we can't, with our technology. I mean, we don't have a craft that can.
How crazy is that we are so focused on the space, which for a lot of people seems to be another conspiracy theory that this could be our motherland. Actually, the reason why we are so focused on what's up there is because that's where we came. And yet, I think it's common knowledge that majority of oceans is not studied. Even the surface is not. That's one thing that I've recently learned. Not just the bottom of the ocean, but even the surface of the ocean hasn't been properly studied. That's crazy. That's right. We don't know what the fuck is going on there here.
Yeah. Who knows? They could be there. They could be. They could be under our oceans. I mean, what a perfect place.
Yeah, that would be crazy. And you think about the ocean. Holy shit, my girlfriend's scared of big water,
Yeah.
and I understand that. I'm not a pussy to be scared of the ocean, because imagine how gay it would be to be scared of oceans. I mean, are you kidding me? I need to have normal phobia. I think I'm scared of fucking drones that fly above my house every night.
Yeah,
trying to
that's
kill me,
definitely
right?
something.
I've recently, I'm coming out with this, to be honest. Recently, I used to previously ask myself, out of curiosity, if I'm scared of anything. And normally what comes to my mind is fucking werewolves. You remember our last conversation?
I remember our last conversation.
I mean, show me a werewolf around me, I'm shitting myself. Werewolf would not even dare to come up close to me because of the stink, But then, shit, I don't know. But I think I do admit that I'm scared of going out at night because of the fucking sound. And by the way, it's nothing compared to what soldiers at the front line experience permanently.
Oh, yeah.
But man, I don't know if you've ever heard this loud fucking bang when a rocket strikes. A rocket could strike the capital, Kyiv, and I'm like, kind of close to Kyiv, not really, but like 80 kilometers. I don't know what it's in miles. And the windows are vibrating here in my home, because that shit strike in Kyiv, 80 kilometers away.
And I couldn't even imagine that.
And the bang and the vibration and the sound keeps going. Or even when Ukrainian jets are flying, in summer, they used to fly regularly twice per day, 2 of them. And I know when I hear that it's our guys, so I kind of feel okay. But then at the same time, there's this primal fear in you when you hear the loud sound and shit is approaching, and what if it fucking crashes? What if 9/11 fucking happens?
Yeah.
That would be insane.
Yeah, that would be
So that's
insane.
another phobia of mine. Fuck werewolves, fuck aliens. Fucking drones.
Yeah.
That's another thing to the topic of our conversation. These days, at least here in Ukraine, you look up at the sky, shit is flying. Shit is moving, shit is flying. I'm looking up at the sky. Okay. Is that a shooting star? Is that a drone?
Right.
Are these fucking aliens? Is autistic Elon Musk doing another wacky shit in the sky? Who the hell knows what's happening, right?
Who knows what's happening? Exactly. I have a replica of one of the elongated skulls from Peru. Yeah, it's right here.
Damn, look at that. Now, if I see a bastard like that, holy shit. Look how, wow.
Look at how elongated. Yeah, and so what's interesting is, there's an area in Peru called Paracas where some of these skulls, they're much more elongated than this, and the suture lines on the back of their head some of them are different than a Homo sapien, because there's a thing called a sagittal suture. I don't know if you can see.
A little bit closer to the camera.
A little closer. You see that curve? That's a suture line. Well, on a normal Homo sapien, there's another line coming out from this curve going this way. So there are some skulls that don't have a sagittal suture, which means that even though if they were artificially elongated, like strapped to a board when they were a kid, they should still have that suture line. That wouldn't remove the suture line.
What is the counter argument, if you're familiar with that? What according to like conventional scientists went with this?
Conventional scientists would just say, "Oh, it's nothing but these ancient cultures being interested in body modification, right? To look
which
different."
is already creepy.
Which is already creepy, because this cranial deformation is what it's called, has been practiced throughout the world.
Wow.
In these ancient cultures all over. It's been practiced. So you have to ask yourself a question. Is it just like what the scientists say? Is it just, they wanted to look different? Or were they trying to emulate something that they encountered, right?
Wow. Because why would you all of a sudden want to mess with your skull like that?
That's right. And what's the biggest form of flattery, right? Is emulation, to copy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Is to copy. Sure. And in most of these cultures, Bodon, the ones that had the elongated heads, they were more of the elite groups.
Well, they should have been. I hope they were, to be honest, for a sacrifice like that. Holy shit. That's insane. But again, I don't know what's creepier. If that skull is not from here and belonged to somebody extraterrestrial, or if these are humans doing wacky shit on themselves. I don't know what's worse, what's scarier, right?
Right. Yeah, so it's interesting in some of those skulls, they're not like the Homo sapien skull. And in fact, they found some of these skulls in Paracas were on the back of the head. The skull, there were holes. There were 2 holes. And doctors have studied that, and they said that those holes were there they think it was an evolutionary process because the skull was so big
Mm.
that those holes in the skull helped circulate the blood in such a big head.
Wow. Well, shit, we're lucky there was no USB port at the back of that skull.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
motherfuckers were probably connecting.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, so do you believe Bob Lazar?
I do. From what I
You do?
know of
Yeah.
him, I watched one of the first documentaries put out about him. I think it was in the 90s,
Mm.
but I really I do believe that he is being true of what he saw.
Mm. Mm.
Because even the government said, "Oh no, he didn't have anything to do with the military, whatever," and then they tried to cover it up and said, "No, he never worked as a contractor." But it was later discovered that yes, there is documentation he did work as a contractor. So why is the government basically said, "Oh, he's lying. He never had anything to do with us"?
Oftentimes, if the government says something, I don't want to be this typical conspiracy douchebag who always looks for false flags, you know, because sometimes if the government says something, it could be that way, right? But mostly if they say something, it's either lie or they telling the truth, but something worse is happening behind the scene, you know, so they're trying to distract the attention.
Yeah. What's your opinion of Bob Lazar? Do you think he's credible? Do you believe him, or?
You know, put a gun to my head, I'd say probably yes. Yeah. At the end of the day, I'd probably agree. Yeah, that I think he's credible. Now, the only reason, but this guy compared to that first guy with whom you've talked, what's his name?
Travis Walton.
Yeah, the difference, I want to imagine that maybe Bob Lazar has made more money, you know, because Bob Lazar is just like, you know, there are documentaries. There's Jeremy Corbell documentaries. He's definitely made some profit. And, you know, every time when a person makes a profit, whenever it's astrology or runology, runes, all that shit, if there's profit involved, it makes you kind of cringe a little bit. Like, is that, you know, so that's maybe the only thing that kind of pulls me away a little bit from credibility.
Sure.
But again, you know, otherwise, he doesn't strike me like this woo-woo character, the kind of person who's like, oh yeah, esoteric type of guy.
Sure.
You know, he's been
consistent.
He's been consistent. He seems to be kind of sickly a little bit, you know, like but then again, well, people say that he has this migraines, this headaches permanently. Does he? You know, maybe it's part of the story. But then again, I remember listening to Jeremy Corbell, which was the guy who connected Rogan with Lazar. Yeah. And this guy is very devoted to what he does. You know, there are these people, you know, they end up making profit, but they're initially run just by pure idea, you know. Yeah. So sometimes it's worthy to look at the people around that person, you know, who's in question. So yeah, I think it could have happened. It could have happened. If that's true, that's insane.
You know, I think was it the FBI raid, or I think it was the FBI that raided his laboratory. I think it was on one of the documentaries.
Wow. Yeah. Probably Bob Lazar's story. That was probably like the first story that got my attention. You know, once I understood what really happened, I was like, oh shit. You know, that was almost like groundbreaking, because it's like I was pulled out of this, aliens, you know, what people think of aliens initially. Yeah, somebody's seen something, it's probably bullshit. Yeah. But then there is this story, you know, which is very multifaceted, you know. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah. Now,
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, with the, people that have claimed to have had alien encounters, there's 3 common descriptions. And the first one is the Greys. And I'm sure you're well aware of them. They're childlike. They have no sexual organs.
Scary.
Gray, grayish in color. And what shape is their head?
Prolonged.
It's elongated and big almond eyes. So you have the Greys, and then you have you heard of the tall? They call them the tall whites, or the Nordics.
I've seen the images of that.
Very tall, kind of Nordic features. Some of them very skinny.
But do they have any representation of a hot bitch among those? Huh? Well, am I not getting abducted, but with some big titty alien?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. And you have the Nordics, you have the Greys, and then you have the reptilians.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, the reptilians. Man. And many people say that the reptilians are the...
Which one is the creepiest to you?
The creepiest, I would say, the reptilians.
Yeah, those bastards.
Reptilians. Yeah.
Man, I'd be scared shitless if some kind of small shit comes. Some kind of again the size of a kid.
Yeah, like
the size of a kid that's clearly not human. Because I want to think that when a fucking 3 meters reptilian is in front of me, it's almost like you have to be scared now. But if there's I'd be like, shit, is that a human? Is that a fucking crazy baby or something? And I'm scared of babies sometimes. Kids can be mean, man.
Yes, they can. Yeah. Well, in that earlier, we were talking about that alleged UFO crash in Brazil, and the aliens that were described that actually were treated at a hospital, or the doctors are claiming they were grays. And some children saw them and said they had the elongated heads. They were small. Ooh. They had the big almond eyes. And the doctor claims that as he was trying to treat one of these beings, it was communicating with him telepathically. Yes. And that's a common description of people that had encounters.
And by the way, that's also another creepy element for me of all these encounters, because physicality, me, it's a big power machine. I got the muscles for a reason, right? Yeah. Now, if that son of a bitch messes with my brain, there's nothing I can do. That's what's really creepy. It can impose hallucinations upon me. It can force me to do anything. Oh, yeah. And how are you protecting yourself? Were you going to wear a Magneto helmet or something?
Right. A tinfoil helmet.
That's what motherfuckers do. Yeah, for sure.
So I was telling you about a neighbor that I had a couple encounters with a Sasquatch. And when I was documenting one of those, part of that description was he felt it was telepathically trying to get into his mind.
That's part of the lore of Sasquatch. Have you ever listened to Sasquatch Chronicles?
I've heard of it. No,
it's a great podcast. It's a great podcast. It combines all kinds of cryptid encounters.
Okay.
You name it, it's on the show. And the good thing about that podcast is, I haven't listened for a while, but it was, the guy always receives calls, from witnesses, from those who've encountered something.
Very
so it's not like, this typical, podcast when there's just a narrator who reads something, because you don't know what he's reading and where he took it from. And you would also maybe not know who's the caller, right? But at least when you hear the guy or the girl describe it, it's a bit more believable, so it's a great podcast.
Yeah, interesting. But so those are the three common: the grays, the tall whites, and the reptilians.
Oh, Stephen Greer. Have you heard that name?
I was going to bring him up. You were reading my mind, Bodon. Yes. Did you hear he has he claims to have a process of where you put yourself in a meditative state and you can attract these beings. And I've seen it on the video, and that comes to another important point. And I actually met an individual that had an encounter like that, and I'll tell you about it in just a minute. But with his process, I don't know, he gives it some name to do this, but you've seen the video footage where they'll get these groups of people, they'll be out late at night, a certain remote location, and they'll get into this meditative state, and then all of a sudden you'll see these orbs appearing. So the question is, in my mind is, are these things like extraterrestrials? Are they more spiritual, interdimensional beings? Right?
Wow. Who knows?
So I met some guy. This was a few years ago who had that encounter. He was out at a location in my state of Washington called Trout Lake, around that area. There's a lot of UFOs. People claim that they've seen them, all kinds of weird paranormal things in that area. And he was there with his wife, and they were with a group, and they were looking for UFOs. And he said, Floyd, he goes, we saw this orb floating above us, and we're all looking at it. And he goes, in my mind, he goes, I turned to my wife and he said, I wonder what it would look like if it powered up. And powered up meaning just got brighter. And right when he said that to his wife, it got brighter and bigger.
And the wife was also seeing the same.
Yes, in the group there was a number of people. They all saw the orb.
Stephen Greer receives sometimes hard time for being on the record with constantly promising a disclosure and never giving a disclosure. That's what he is criticized for. And again, a very controversial person, often banned from a lot of channels. I don't know what to think of the guy. I was very excited when I fell into that rabbit hole when I discovered his name first,
Oh
because
yeah.
I mean, he has a big mouth. We need to give it to the guy in terms of promising a lot, promising a lot.
Yes.
But if that's the case, then shit. I mean, doesn't he even have an app which teaches you probably? Yeah.
Probably. Yes, he does. I think he has like some type of training course too.
Well, that would be exciting to try. Listen, I'd be willing
Yeah.
to pay some subscription, dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be. But again, it's creepy. You got to have a couple of balls to do shit like that. Because man,
Just be careful. Just be careful. 'Cause you might not end up with an orb. Be
oh
careful
yeah,
you
I'm
don't
gonna
end up with a werewolf.
Rush.
Be careful.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna say about the Russian drone striking my face.
Yeah, be careful you don't end up attracting a werewolf.
Oh man. Yes, listen, werewolves is all. There have been a couple of good films lately coming out about werewolves. Have you seen any recently?
I haven't seen any, but you inspired me because it was around last Halloween. You reached out.
Dog
we did
Soldiers?
a show on. I'm writing. I started off with a short story on a werewolf, and now it might develop into a book.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, you
Give me a
inspired
bit
me
of a
for
premise.
that.
Hey,
Yeah,
listen, make sure to note me.
I
need to
will.
take some
I
credit.
will. So it's going to take place in America in the 1800s around the fur trade era, the mountain man era.
Ooh.
So it's got that vibe to it,
Yeah.
and I'm into the 3rd chapter. But once I do some more work, I'll send
Nice.
you a.
Well, listen, man, you
a
make
bit
sure
of
to
it.
release it because Robert Eggers, this director, he is a big name in horror cinematography, and he's
Okay.
right now involved in making a werewolf film. All his previous films there haven't been a lot of them, but they've all been bangers. Crazy
Wow.
success. So he's developing, I think, also 18th century horror film about werewolves. Now if you manage, it's not that he's probably going to steal your success. It's a big Hollywood name, right? But what if your book comes out around the time when that film comes out? People will be interested. You can make a bag for sure.
Yeah. Interesting subject.
I love it.
There was another movie, but it's not a werewolf. It was a vampire movie that came out in the 80s. It was called Life Force. Did you ever see that?
No.
Oh my gosh, look that one up. It's a cult classic. But the whole premise of it, it looks like an alien ship that we discover, kind of reminds me of what we're talking about with like Oumuamua and Three Eye Atlas. It's this huge ship that our astronauts go in there and they find these bodies in there that
kind
are
of like The Thing. You've seen The Thing?
Kind of. I love The Thing. That's one of my all-time favorite
sure.
sci-fi movies. And they bring it back to Earth. And really what it is, it's like a vampire.
Oh.
It's a beautiful lady, and she runs around naked the whole movie. So you'll like it, Bodon. Yeah, you'll like it. She's running around in her birthday suit the whole movie.
Really?
But she's a vampire, but what they tie the legends in of the vampires to the aliens, that they're aliens that have come to this planet.
Wow. And I think so you said you started writing it as a short form, right? And
short story. It just started as a story.
Yeah.
And I got into the flow and I'm I'm liking this.
And how amazing it is but you don't have to be the fucking writer acclaimed if you just have imagination and idea.
Imagination.
Yeah. And it's so exciting because you get the freedom to do what hasn't been done or maybe has been done, but not quite how you portray it to be.
That's right.
I'm very excited about finishing my current text so I can proceed to short form.
So what is in a nutshell, what is your book about?
So it's there's nothing paranormal. It's basically a story about revenge, and I don't want to say what kind of revenge and for what exactly, because it's going to be a bit of a plot twist there. It's about a guy who takes revenge on all of these characters in the story. They are very dubious in terms of there's nobody bad or good. There's a lot of blood and a lot of revenge, and the reasoning for that revenge is strong and meaningful on the one hand, but at the same time, the main character he acts in a way that would be very looked down upon in societies. But basically, it's a revenge. It's a revenge for those who need protection and revenge the most. And that eventually gets him into a big predicament, a big predicament. The name will be probably The Inevitability, if I translate it properly, Inevitability.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's my, it's the result of my fascination with horror, with gory genre. And
are you going to blend some philosophical
100%.
elements in there?
The entire premise is built on philosophy of basically determinism. I consider myself to be a determinist. I know it contradicts a lot of religious views. I don't believe in freedom of will. And, I've been getting into existential philosophy, been reading some French philosophers. I was talking to my friend Justice about Albert Camus. You might have heard that French name. And
He sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, well, Albert Camus is arguably the biggest name in existential philosophy. It's the myth of Sisyphus. If you've heard that story of a guy pushing up a boulder on top of a mountain, and the boulder is always dropping down and he pushes it back up. Yeah. So that's probably his most famous story. Yeah. And I talked to Justin about Albert Camus. I asked him, what do you think about this guy? And he just humiliated me and humiliated Camus. He said, well, this is the guy who famously couldn't decide between drinking a cup of coffee or killing himself. And I told Justin, in my book, it's a perfectly reasonable debate to have every now and then. And I always choose, I don't choose coffee, I choose White Monster. Yeah, White Monster is the best.
You'll have to keep me updated. It sounds like a very interesting book.
Well, you're experienced in that, but I'm sure you also had this sort of anxiety before publishing your book, right? It's like you basically you open yourself up before 100%, the audience, right?
100%. Yeah.
It takes courage. Definitely takes courage because you think, well, what if people? And but what if people? Who gives a fuck if what if people, right?
That's right. Yeah. I don't even check my ratings before. Like when I first wrote my book, I was like, oh, how many stars do I have on
the first
Amazon?
episode, I checked and it was good. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, but I've got to the point where I doesn't. What people think of me is not my business.
Good.
That's my attitude
for sure.
And in life, what you think of me is not my business. It's your interpretation.
100%. Yeah, I like this quote that says that if you are writing, you are a writer. That's it. Don't think about being published, having success. Yeah. You write, you are a writer. That's it. So well, listen, Floyd, let's wish success to both of us.
Absolutely.
I think we might potentially have a pretty bright future in literature if we don't get our ass abducted by some hot bitches, and it better be hot bitches if we're abducted. Well, what if we're both abducted one day? Imagine running into each other or one of those space ships.
Yeah. Beam me up. Beam us up, Scotty.
That would be crazy. Yeah, but again, if shit like that happens, again, we are so skeptical. I wouldn't even trust myself to know whether I'm tripping. What if something was in the cigar? Who fucking knows?
Yeah.
Listen, man, thoroughly enjoyed this conversation as always. My friend. Let's decide upon the next. I suppose the next one's got to be about Bigfoot. Let's get in that.
Let's get on it.
Let's make it through. I don't know if it has to be one more year, but if it is one more year, let's make it through. We're living in very turbulent times, so I hope we'll be alive.
Yes, always a pleasure, Bodon. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you to whoever's listening to this for tuning in. And I'm praying for you and your country. I'm praying for peace. I'm praying for the peacemakers. Enough killing, enough bloodshed, and just really.
Who knows? Maybe by the time our next episode will be recorded, it will be a totally different time. Maybe better, maybe worse.
Maybe for the better. Hopefully for the better, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.